We were at line 543. The
Trial version.
fallen angels, they are standing in formation. So Milton describes the army, their banners, orient colors. Here orient stands for brilliant or bright colors.
Trial
With them
version.
rose a forest huge of spears, and thronging helms appeared. Thronging means crowding. And
Trial
serried
version.
shields in thick array, of depth immeasurable. So a great number
Trial
of
version.
rows of soldiers with their shields standing close together.
Trial version.
Serried means a number of rows of people standing close together. And on they move in perfect phalanx to the Dorian mood of flutes and recorders are musical instruments, and they move swiftly. Anon means soon, here it means
Trial
swiftly,
version.
with the tune of flutes and recorders which were being played in the Dorian mood. The three modes of music in ancient Greece were
Trial version.
Dorian, Ionian and Lydian, and among them Ionian and Lydian, soft, solemn and indulgent type, and the Dorian
Trial
mode
version.
of music was martial type. Ionian, Lydian and Dorian modes of music. Milton was very well versed in Western music. Probably he also had an interest
Trial version.
in ancient music as well. Later also Milton
Trial
shows
version.
the importance of music in work. When the fallen angels build the pandemonium, they build it to the tunes of such as raised to height of noblest temper, heroes old arming to battle, and instead of rage
Trial version.
deliberate valor breathed, firm and unmoved with dread of death to flight or foul retreat. The armies, the soldiers
Trial
of
version.
Satan's army are compared to ancient armies, by which I suppose Milton means classical armies.
Trial version.
Armies as described in classical epics, in the Thebaid or Homer's epic. So they are raised to the height of noblest temper. So their
Trial version.
temperament was like that of the noblest soldiers, and instead of rage, deliberate valor. So rage
Trial
or
version.
anger is not the proper quality of a soldier, but valor, that is the quality needed in a soldier.
Trial version.
And they are not afraid of defeat. They remain firm and unmoved, and they are not afraid of death. Unmoved with dread of death to flight or foul retreat. So even if there
Trial
is
version.
an imminent possibility of dying in the battle, they remain unmoved. They do not retreat, or they do not try to escape. Nor wanting power to mitigate and assuage with solemn touches troubled thoughts and chase anguish and doubt and fear and sorrow and pain
Trial version.
from mortal or immortal minds. So, who is not wanting power? The music. These two sentences, or we may say one sentence,
Trial
is
version.
about the music. So the music raised the noble temper of the soldiers. the
Trial
subject
version.
of the verb raised is music, and the music is not wanting in power, that is, it does not lack the power of mitigating, that is diminishing, or sways, that is assuaging, that is giving assurance with solemn touches. So this music mitigates the
version.
fear of defeat or death and assures them and removes their troubled thoughts or doubt and fear. So Milton in these sentences praises the music to which Satan's army moved in
Trial
formation.
version.
And this music can do all these in both mortal and immortal minds. So music is
Trial
so powerful
version.
that it can influence both humans, mortals, and immortal angels. Thus they, breathing united force with fixed thought,
Trial
moved
version.
on in silence to soft pipes that charmed their painful steps over the burnt soil. So the soldiers
Trial
of
version.
Satan's army, they united strength with fixed thought or determination, breathing
Trial
united
version.
force with fixed thought, and they moved on with the tune of the pipes. The music seemed to have a magical effect, so that they did not feel the burning soil. And now advanced in view they stand, a horrid front of dreadful length and dazzling arms, in guise of warriors old with
Trial
ordered
version.
spear and shield, awaiting what command their mighty chief had to impose. So they are now standing, waiting for the order of their in the formation of an army, but Milton uses the word guise, in guise of warriors old. So they appear like ancient warriors, but they are actually angels from heaven. But
Trial
Satan
version.
has converted them into warriors, like those who are praised in ancient epics. He through the armed files darts his experienced eye. So here, like all
Trial version.
generals, inspect the army, and the army stand waiting for the command of the general, and the general inspects the army before
Trial
giving
version.
any command. Similarly, Satan inspects the whole army, darts his experienced eye through the armed files,
Trial
through the files
version.
of the soldiers, and soon traverse the whole battalion, views their ordered due, their visages and stature as of gods,
Trial
their
version.
numbered lasty sons. So he looks at them, looks at their order, their faces, visage means face, and stature of gods. So their face and
Trial
their
version.
bodies, they are of gods. So Satan proudly looks at these noble
Trial version.
figures, and finally he counts the number of the soldiers, which is the duty of any general before a war, to
Trial
see
version.
how many soldiers are there at his command. And now his heart distends with pride, and hardening in his strength glories.
Trial version.
So here Milton praises Satan as an army general by using the epithet
Trial
experienced.
version.
Again, he says that his heart distends with pride. He becomes very proud of his soldiers,
Trial
by looking at
version.
his soldiers, and hardening in strength glories. So he seems to be
Trial version.
more convinced, hardened of his glory if he fought with these soldiers. Now these are also
Trial version.
reasons for Satan's damnation, that he is proud, he is full of pomp and glory.
Trial
For
version.
never since created man made such embodied force. And now Milton will compare Satan's army with a number of armies
Trial
in
version.
history or in literature or mythology. in the manner of an epic simile.
Trial
There
version.
will be a string of comparisons, a number of comparisons. Never since created man met such embodied
Trial version.
force. This is Latin construction or Latinate construction. Since created man means since man was
Trial
created.
version.
So Milton just imitates the Latin construction. Never ever since man was created,
Trial
nobody
version.
ever saw such an army. As named with these could merit more than that small
Trial
infantry
version.
warred on by cranes. So Milton's way of praising anything belonging to Satan or belonging to the
Trial
angels
version.
is by saying that no such thing is available here on earth, or anything that is here on earth which can be
Trial
compared
version.
to these is inferior. Just like he compared Satan's
Trial
spear,
version.
the tallness of the spear, by saying that even the tallest Norwegian pine tree which would be made the mast of an amiral of
Trial
a warship,
version.
Even that is not as tall as Satan's spear. So the negative comparison is used
Trial version.
because anything that is heavenly cannot have any match here on earth. Similarly here, no army
Trial
which
version.
history records or can be found in mythology can stand in comparison to this army of Satan, because it is
Trial
an
version.
army of heavenly angels or heavenly beings. So compared to Satan's army, any such
Trial
army
version.
would be like the pygmy, the army of the pygmies. In Homer, there
Trial
is
version.
a story of the pygmies fighting with the cranes. The pygmies are an African race
Trial version.
who are dwarfish in stature. But in literature and mythology, their smallness has been exaggerated,
Trial version.
and so much exaggerated that Homer imagined that the pygmies found it very difficult to fight with the cranes.
Trial
They are
version.
so small in stature. So here Milton suggests that any earthly army compared to Satan's army would be like the
Trial
pygmies
version.
who try to fight the cranes. Though all the giant brood.
Trial version.
So here also small infantry. Infantry means army, but Milton is deliberately probably using
Trial
the word
version.
infantry to pun with infant, to indicate the smallness of the pygmies.
Trial version.
Though all the giant brood of Phlegra with the heroic race were joined, that fought at Thebes and Ilium, on each side mixed with auxiliary gods.
Trial version.
So here Milton refers to the two principal ancient epic cycles centered on the fight
Trial
of the
version.
Theban brothers and on the siege of Troy. These battles are described
version.
in Homer's Iliad and Statius's Thebaid. So you of course know the name of Homer's Iliad,
Trial version.
but you may not know Statius, another famous
Trial version.
Greek writer, Statius, and the name of his epic was Thebaid.
Trial version.
So the armies which fought in these epics,
Trial version.
even they were insignificant compared to Satan's army, and these armies had auxiliary
Trial
gods,
version.
that is, Homer and Statius both describe gods taking part in these wars. So the gods have auxiliary role, that is, they support
Trial version.
one or the other party. And what resounds in fable or romance of Uthar's son begot
Trial
his British and
version.
Armoric knights. Then he refers to, Milton refers to the Arthurian tale, the
Trial
romances,
version.
Of King Arthur, which centered around King Arthur. Milton had a plan to write
Trial
an epic
version.
on the Arthurian romances, which did not materialize, but he mentions here Arthur. So Arthur was Uthar's son,
Trial version.
and his army had British and Armoric knights. Armoric means Brittany, knights from Brittany.
Trial version.
And all who since, baptized or infidel, jousted in Aspremont or Montalban, Damasco or Morocco or Trebizond, or whom Bizata sent
Trial
from
version.
Attic shore. So here Milton is alluding to a number of ancient battles in quick succession, and
Trial version.
referring to the Crusades,
Trial version.
which were battles between the Christian knights and the Saracen knights. Saracen is the ancient term for Muslim. So
Trial version.
in these crusades, the armies of Christians and the Saracens fought, and these are
Trial version.
narrated in several romances. So
Trial version.
Aspremont is a castle near Nice in France, and it is
Trial version.
also described in the romance Aspromonte by Barberino. So Andrea
Trial version.
da Barberino, an European poet,
Trial version.
Barberino, wrote a romance called Aspromonte
Trial version.
about the battle fought there, the crusade fought there,
Trial version.
and the castle of Rinaldo is Montalban. So Montalban
Trial version.
is the place
Trial version.
where there was
Trial version.
the castle of Rinaldo, and
Trial version.
it is described in Boiardo's epic, I think,
Trial version.
Luigi Pulci and Boiardo and Ariosto. So three poets mentioned Montalban as the place
Trial
where
version.
the castle of Rinaldo was there. The three poets are Luigi Pulci,
Trial version.
Ariosto and Tasso are well known, but everybody may not know Luigi Pulci
Trial version.
and Boiardo and Barberino. So in these three romances of
Trial version.
Pulci, Boiardo and Ariosto, Montalban is mentioned. So Milton
Trial version.
Milton read all these poems. Therefore, when he writes about an ancient battle,
Trial
and
version.
he remembers these poems and mentions Aspremont or Montalban,
Trial
The
version.
expression baptized or infidel who jousted in Aspremont or Montalban, this expression is taken directly from
Trial
Ariosto,
version.
Orlando Furioso. Baptized or infidel. So Milton is closely imitating the Italian poet Ariosto.
Trial version.
Ariosto mentions of
So,
tournaments in Aspremont and Montalban. Yes.
Trial version.
so there's several allusions to Homer's or Thebaid by status, Greek epic poets, Greek cultural motifs
version.
and gods and goddesses, as well as Christian themes and prominently biblical themes coexisting with Italian Romance writers
Trial
and their romantic figures, as well as Arthurian romances and crusades. Don't they reflect the vast culture
Trial version.
tapestry that nourished Milton's genius and reached a culminating point in his Edge, which he
Trial
used in this
version.
epic kind of to synthesize the various elements and weave them together, very similar to Spenser's Fairy Queenie.
Yes, definitely so.
Trial version.
Milton's Paradise Lost gives the reader an impression of his learning as well. So he was a very learned
Trial
reader.
version.
I mean, even in the Renaissance, even in the 17th century, not many poets would be able to read in the original
Trial
languages
version.
so many works of literature, so many poems. Milton's knowledge of languages
Trial
enabled
version.
him to read Greek, Latin, Hebrew, and different European literatures, and therefore
Trial
he could
version.
synthesize them, as you say, or he could bring them together in his own work. So we must
Trial
remember
version.
that that one of the essential qualities of the Renaissance was a synthesis
Trial version.
of different cultural strands, because we may speak about Renaissance in England or Renaissance in France or Renaissance
Trial
in
version.
Italy, whatever, but everywhere Renaissance stands for incorporation of not
Trial
only
version.
the classical art and literature, Greek, Roman, Hebrew, but also modern European art and literature
Trial
in different
version.
languages. So the European writers often borrowed from one another,
Trial version.
but England was to some extent insulated from the cultural
Trial version.
hotbed or ferment of the Renaissance, and that is why the Renaissance reached in England later. It started in the 15th century in Italy,
Trial
moved on to
version.
France, and then Spain and other European countries, but it reached England later. So when Milton writes in the 17th century, by that
Trial
time
version.
England had absorbed all the rich cultural legacy of European Renaissance, and the best
Trial
product
version.
of that we can see in Milton. So we must say that Milton is the ultimate product of the European Renaissance.
Trial
That
version.
is, entire European culture was absorbed by Milton, even though he was an English poet, and that was possible also because
Trial version.
of Milton's extensive travel in Europe and Italy. So of course you can say that
Trial version.
Milton wants to present a synthesis, but this synthesis
Trial version.
was the most difficult task to perform, and though Spenser succeeds
Trial
to a
version.
large extent in creating a romance kind of poem in the Fairy Queen, following the
Trial
European
version.
romance tradition and also borrowing some ideas from epics, But if you compare Spencer and Milton, the first
Trial version.
difference that will strike you is that Milton is also determined to write a Christian epic poem,
Trial version.
being a strict Puritan himself, and all of you know that the
Trial
Renaissance
version.
was basically pagan in inspiration. So Milton was synthesizing also pagan and Christian elements.
Trial version.
And in order to write the Christian element, he also imitated poets about whom Spencer would never have thought.
Trial version.
The French poet of the week, Dubartas, and other European writers, Grotius,
Trial version.
who wrote on Christian themes. So Milton was also imitating them. And also because of his Christian theme, Milton was
Trial version.
influenced by the Hebraic tradition. The Hebrew literary tradition is a little different from the Greek literary tradition.
Trial
So
version.
Milton synthesized a lot of things, in fact, here. Thank you for this question, but I suppose I went on too long on this. Then Bizata, the reference to
Trial
Bizata
version.
here, which was in which was a Byzantine city.
Trial
and
version.
It is mentioned in Orlando Innamorato by Boiardo. Boiardo tells how the Saracens gathered at Bizata
Trial
in
version.
Tunis for their invasion of Spain. You know that Spain was invaded and conquered by
Trial
the Turks,
version.
and Tunis is in Morocco. So this invasion is described in
Trial version.
Boiardo, and Milton alludes to that as well.
Trial version.
Or whom Bizata sent from Afric shore when Charlemagne with all his peerage fell by Fontarabia. That is, Milton is referring
Trial
to
version.
Charlemagne's defeat at Fontarabia, but actually Fowler in his notes states
Trial
that
version.
that Charlemagne, some of his army was
Trial version.
massacred at Rossval, about 40 miles from Fontarabia. One Spanish author, Mariana, put the defeat at Fontarabia itself,
Trial
but
version.
there was no version in which Charlemagne fell. So Charlemagne was not defeated. Now, Charlemagne
Trial version.
was a great king of the Middle Ages, universally acknowledged for his greatness.
Trial version.
And Milton brings in Charlemagne in this poem from time to time to compare unfavorably
Trial
Charles
version.
the First. Both are Charles, and therefore the greater Charles and the inferior Charles. Milton's purpose is to show the
Trial
inferiority
version.
of Charles the First by bringing in Charlemagne. Now, the royalist
Trial version.
there was a royalist rising in August 1659, which ultimately failed, and then Charles went
Trial
to
version.
Fontarabia to seek support from both the French and the Spanish. So Charles the First is also involved in
Trial version.
in this allusion to Fontarabia. Milton spells Fontarabia, the
Trial version.
modern spelling is Fuente Rabia, where Charles the
Trial
First
version.
went.
Trial version.
So even this army, which defeated Charlemagne, cannot be compared to Satan's army. Okay.
Trial
So
version.
it is like an epic simile. Every army and every war that has been alluded to here has a story of its own.
Trial
to tell.
version.
All these are strung up together to provide an epic simile for Satan's army.
Trial version.
Thus far these beyond compare of mortal prowess Thus far these beyond compare of mortal prowess, yet observe their
Trial
dread
version.
commander. So the soldiers of Satan's army, they are
Trial version.
much superior to the strength and prowess of the human soldiers.
Trial version.
Yet they observe their dread commander, that is, they are afraid of their military leader, Satan.
Trial version.
The word dread is often used in epic poems. Milton uses it
Trial
a great
version.
number of times, and following Milton or sometimes parodying Milton, Pope also uses this word. He, above the rest in shape and gesture, proudly eminent, stood like a tower. His form had yet not
Trial
lost
version.
all her original brightness, nor appeared less than archangel ruined. So Satan is described as a tower because of his stature,
Trial version.
but tower is actually traditionally an epithet to describe Christ.
Trial version.
And the phrase archangel ruined, you can see the adjective following the noun.
Trial version.
Ruined archangel, but the inversion of the place of noun and adjective, that is an imitation of
Trial version.
French and Latin syntax. In Latin, the adjective can sit either before or after the noun. In French, ordinarily the
Trial
adjective
version.
sits after the noun. So we may say that Milton is imitating French and Latin syntax here.
Trial
And
version.
the excess of glory obscured. So because of the fall, Satan had lost some of his brilliance, brightness,
Trial version.
not all. So in spite of his fall, he retained some brightness. Not
Trial
all his
version.
brightness was lost. So the excess of glory obscure, that is,
Trial version.
soon Milton would compare Satan to a solar eclipse. The sun is so bright that we ordinarily
Trial
cannot
version.
look at the sun with our eyes, but when there is an eclipse, then we may look at the sun, because the excess glory, the excess brightness is obscured
Trial
by
version.
the eclipse. And here Satan's situation is similar. As when the sun, new reason, looks through the horizontal misty air shorn of his beams.
Trial version.
So either the newborn sun, which can be seen in the through
Trial
the mist
version.
on the horizon. One may look at the newborn sun, which is shorn of its beams. That is,
Trial
strong
version.
rays are not there, or from behind the moon in dim eclipse, disastrous twilight sheds on half the
Trial
nation,
version.
and with fear of change perplexes monarchs. So, in a short sentence, Milton gives us
Trial
all
version.
the 16th century superstition about solar eclipses, how
Trial
the
version.
eclipse stood for great disaster. There is an eloquent expression to the possible disaster which might follow an
Trial
eclipse
version.
in King Lear. Gloucester in King Lear is a superstitious character, and
Trial
he
version.
talks about the eclipse. So since traditionally the
Trial version.
king was compared to the sun, therefore the eclipse
Trial version.
raised a fear in the minds of the people that this might lead to a change in the king.
Trial
So
version.
kings may fall if there is an eclipse, and there may be anarchy.
Trial version.
The eclipse leads to a strange kind of light or twilight or half light.
Trial
and
version.
It has fearful consequences, and it perplexes monarchs because then kings become wary of keeping their throne.
Trial version.
Darkened so, yet shone above them all the archangel, but his face deep scars of thunder had entrenched, and care sat
Trial
on
version.
his faded cheek, but under brows of dauntless courage and considerate pride waiting revenge. We may say that Milton is writing
Trial
a French
version.
sketch of Satan's face, a portrait, and in his face, courage, pride, the thought of revenge, all can be seen.
Trial version.
Cruel his eye, but cast signs of remorse and passion to behold the fellows of his crime. The followers rather, far other
Trial
ones
version.
beheld in bliss, condemned forever now to have their lot in pain, millions of spirits for his fault immersed of heaven, and
Trial
from eternal
version.
splendor flung for his revolt. So the soldiers, the fallen angels, when
Trial
Satan looks
version.
at them, he is reminded of his fault, that these soldiers have fallen because they followed him.
Trial
And,
version.
Otherwise, they would have been enjoyed the bliss in heaven.
Trial version.
So now, because of this, in Satan one can see the emotions of remorse and pain,
Trial version.
and these soldiers, these fallen angels, previously they were
Trial version.
seen in bliss in heaven, and now they are fellows in crime with Satan, and therefore
Trial
are
version.
condemned to suffer. Millions of spirits for his fault immersed. Immersed means deprived, deprived of heaven.
Trial version.
And from eternal splendor flung for his revolt, yet faithful how they stood, their glory withered. So even though they have been thrown out of
Trial
heaven
version.
because of Satan's decision or action, yet they remain faithful. So they are pictures of loyalty, and
Trial version.
they stand with their glory withered, which Milton
Trial version.
would compare to a singed tree. Immersed means deprived, deprived of heaven.
Trial version.
So the glory withered, Milton compares it to a singed tree. That is a tree which has been burnt because of
Trial version.
thunderbolt. Similarly, these angels, they have lost their glory, they have withered
Trial
because
version.
of their fall. As when heaven's fire had scathed the forest oaks or
Trial
mountain
version.
pines, with singed top their stately growth they bear stands on the blasted head. So tall oak trees or
Trial
pine
version.
trees, when heaven's fire, that is thunder, falls on them, then their tops get burnt, singed, and they stand without their
Trial version.
canopy, without the top of these trees, and they stand on the blasted head on the meadow. Similarly, the
Trial
angels
version.
look, when they stand without their glory. Well, he now prepared to speak, whereat their double ranks they bend from wing to wing, and half enclose him round
Trial
with all
version.
his peers. So as he prepares to speak, the angels want to hear well what their commander has to say. So they bring
Trial
their
version.
phalanx on the two sides close together in a semicircular movement
Trial version.
and bring the two wings together so that Satan is almost surrounded by
Trial
the
version.
soldiers all around him and half enclose him round with all his peers. Attention held them mute, so they remained
Trial
silent
version.
because they wanted to listen to Satan's speech. Thrice he essayed, and thrice in spite of scorn,
Trial
tears
version.
such as angels weep burst forth. Essay, here Milton uses the word in its original meaning. This word
Trial
is borrowed
version.
from French. Essayer means to attempt or to try. That is why when you write an essay, you try to write on some particular topic. You attempt. That is why it is called an
Trial
essay.
version.
Milton called his works essay in this sense, that he was attempting to do something in a novel form
Trial
which
version.
previously was not attempted. Okay. So Satan tried to speak, but 3 times
Trial
his
version.
voice was choked with emotion, and then finally he spoke. But before that, it seems that he
Trial version.
wept, and tears or tear drops could be seen falling from his eyes. Tears such as angels weep.
Trial version.
So Milton is referring to Renaissance angelology and suggested that Satan's tears
Trial version.
is not like that of ordinary mortals, but angels' tears. Right. So after that, the 5th speech will begin.
Trial
But
version.
I think we should stop here. Milton is comparing Satan's army to different other armies mentioned in literature,
Trial version.
mythology and romance. So he compares Satan's army first to the
Trial version.
alluding to the war of the pygmies with the cranes. He says that any army that would fight with Satan's army would be like the army of the pygmies
Trial version.
fighting the cranes. Then he alludes to the battles described in
Trial
Homer's
version.
Iliad and Statius' Thebaid, where the gods also participated, and then he alludes
Trial
to the
version.
romances, where Italian romances particularly, where
Trial
the
version.
Crusades, fights between Christian armies and Saracen armies are described, and the
Trial version.
sources or these romances are Luigi Pulci, Morgante Maggiore, Boiardo Orlando Innamorato,
Trial version.
Ariosto Orlando Furioso. So he is closely following Ariosto in these lines, and
Trial
the
version.
line baptized or infidel, jousted in Aspremont, this line is almost a copy from Ariosto.
Trial
who
version.
describes the battle or tournament, joust, between the Christians and the Saracens in Aspremont.
Trial version.
And then he refers to the defeat of Charlemagne
Trial version.
at Fontarabia, and he compares, indirectly he compares or he suggests
Trial version.
the defeat of the royalist rising in 1659, in which the
Trial
royalists
version.
failed, and Charles I went to Fontarabia to seek the help of the French and the Spanish.
So isn't it ironic that Milton, in spite of being a staunch Puritan for most of his life and
Trial version.
attempting to write an epic which would employ as its principal setting and theme a biblical cosmological universe, he
Trial version.
punctuates this epic with several pagan allusions and imagery.
Well, I don't know whether we should say that it is ironic.
Trial version.
We cannot forget that Milton was the product of the Renaissance. So he has been called the last humanist.
Trial version.
The Renaissance, as I told you already, was essentially pagan. The whole inspiration of the Renaissance was pagan. Simultaneously,
Trial
there
version.
was this movement which we have termed the Reformation, and that movement was about Christian Reformation.
Trial version.
So, being a Puritan means being influenced by the Reformation. Under the influence of the Reformation, Milton was, of course,
Trial version.
extremely concerned with theology. However,
Trial version.
insofar as art and literature are concerned, there the contribution of
Trial version.
theologians was very little, or we may say the contribution of religion was not so much. The great art and poetry that
Trial
the
version.
Renaissance imbibed were all classical or pagan, that is Greek and Roman. And similarly, the
Trial version.
the flowering of art and literature in the 16th century, which we call the
Trial
European
version.
Renaissance, that was also pagan in spirit, because that followed the classical tradition. So,
Trial
if
version.
anybody wanted or aimed to write an epic poem, it would mean imitating Homer,
Trial
Statius,
version.
Virgil, and so on. So, therefore, writing a Christian epic poem means to combine
Trial version.
two traditions which are apparently contradictory, because one is Christian, another is pagan.
Trial
However,
version.
since the Renaissance was an age of synthesis, therefore Milton was able to synthesize both the classical tradition
Trial version.
and the Christian tradition in his writings. I am not sure whether this satisfies
Trial
you.
version.
Yes, sir. So Milton's schooling was essentially imbued in the Renaissance spirit, which was predominantly and
version.
fundamentally pagan.
Exactly. But Milton was so much learned in Christian literature,
Trial version.
that is, when we speak of Christian literature, I do not mean poems and epics, but writers of
Trial version.
Greek and Roman Christian fathers, patristic writings. These writings were mostly
Trial version.
theological, but some of these writers were also extremely concerned with style, language, rhetoric, and so on.
Trial version.
And two great examples of such writers, one is Jerome, Saint Jerome. He was a great writer, and
Trial
he
version.
developed a great style of writing. And the second is Lactantius. Lactantius was also a great model in Latin writing.
Trial version.
Therefore, Milton also imbibed the virtues of writing from the Christian writers. Okay. So, because of his vast
Trial version.
reading in both the traditions, it was possible for him to synthesize all these elements together. But I won't say it is ironic. I will say that it is
Trial version.
appropriate, because we remember Milton not as the propagandist of a particular Puritan sect,
Trial version.
but as a great poet. And therefore, as a poet, he synthesizes different traditions.
Yes, sir.
Trial version.
Anybody has any other question?